For decades, Japan and the United States were the bedrock of global stability, an alliance built on shared interests and trust. But in the summer of 2025, that trust was shattered. President Trump threatened a crippling 25% tariff on Japanese goods, sending shockwaves through Tokyo. This wasn't just a trade dispute, it felt like betrayal. Japan, long a model ally, suddenly found itself targeted by the very order it helped uphold. The ultimatum was clear: renegotiate or face the consequences. Capitulate, and Japan would be forever subordinate, resist and risk losing its biggest market. The move was seen as economic coercion, not negotiation. For years, whispers about diversifying alliances were ignored. Now, they became urgent policy debates. If the US could weaponize trade against a close friend, was the alliance truly reliable? Japanese policymakers began openly searching for new partners and strategies. The old certainties were gone, the search for alternatives had begun. To understand Japan's dilemma, you have to understand Trump's approach. Alliances are deals, not sacred trusts. In July 2025, he paused the harshest tariffs but warned, by August, Japan and others would face 25% tariffs without new, favorable deals. The message: no exceptions. Negotiations felt like bargaining with a gun to your head. Progress one day, threats the next. The unpredictability left Tokyo paralyzed. The US cast its net wide, targeting BRICS nations and allies alike. Brazil faced a 50% tariff, India 25%, all linked to US demands and a pushback against BRICS' de-dollarization efforts. The US forced countries to pick sides in a new economic Cold War. Instead of isolating rivals, America's tactics pushed them closer together. For Japan, this chaos was alien, stability and consensus replaced by threats and uncertainty. The America First policy was starting to look like America alone. Japan was forced to question its entire post-war strategy. Was its future prosperity still tied to an unpredictable ally? While Washington wielded tariffs, the BRICS bloc was quietly expanding. With new members like Egypt, Indonesia, and the UAE, BRICS was becoming a true counterweight to Western institutions. United by frustration with US economic power, the expanded BRICS condemned the tariffs as a threat to global stability. In September, Brazil convened an emergency meeting. BRICS would not be bullied. Their strategy challenged the US dollar's dominance by trading in local currencies. De-dollarization was no longer a distant goal, it was a survival tactic. Trump's tariffs only accelerated this shift. For Japan, BRICS now looked less like a club of emerging markets and more like a potential safe harbor. Here was a bloc representing a huge share of global GDP, building a parallel economic system. Japan, feeling cornered by its traditional ally, saw a chance to diversify and regain autonomy. The idea of aligning with BRICS was no longer unthinkable. It was a real option on the table. The world order was shifting. Japan was ready to explore new alliances. Japan now faced a high-stakes balancing act. For generations, its foreign policy was simple: stick with America. But Trump's tariffs made loyalty look like dependency. The BRICS bloc offered vast, untapped markets hungry for Japanese technology and investment. Aligning with BRICS could open new supply chains and reduce reliance on a single partner. But the risks were huge. Closer ties with China and Russia could strain Japan's security alliance with the US. The American military presence and nuclear umbrella had been Japan's defense bedrock for 70 years. Walking away would require a total security overhaul and massive defense spending. Tokyo's debate was fierce. Traditionalists clung to the US alliance, reformists argued for strategic autonomy. The decision would define Japan's role in the 21st century. Remain a follower, or become a leader in a new global order. The stakes had never been higher. Japan's next move would shape its destiny. The US-Japan standoff sent shockwaves through global trade. The era of predictable, rules-based commerce was ending, replaced by economic blocs and tit-for-tat tariffs. US policy changes, like closing the de minimis loophole, disrupted e-commerce and small businesses worldwide. Allies like South Korea and the EU watched Japan's pivot with alarm. Could they be next? Japan's move could trigger a domino effect, with more nations seeking shelter in BRICS. Global supply chains built on stability and low tariffs now faced fragmentation. Manufacturing might become regionalized, costs would rise, and consumers would pay the price. The seamless global marketplace was fracturing into fortified fortresses. Institutions like the WTO and IMF saw their authority erode as BRICS built alternatives. Even Japan, a model citizen of the old order, was considering a new system. The world was changing fast. The ripples from Japan's decision would be felt for decades. The global economic map was being redrawn. Japan's economic pivot had profound geopolitical consequences. This wasn't just about trade, it was about power and the future world order. If Japan joined BRICS, it would be the biggest realignment since the Cold War. The unipolar era of US dominance would be over. BRICS, with Japan's economic muscle, would become a formidable global force. The US Indo-Pacific strategy, with Japan as its linchpin, would collapse. A new era of cooperation between Japan, China, and Russia could emerge. Once unthinkable, now possible. Japan's defiance shattered the illusion that allies had no choice but to follow Washington. The US faced a reckoning: double down on unilateralism or return to collaboration. The world was becoming multipolar, with nations seeking independent paths. Japan was no longer content to be a follower. The tectonic plates of global power were shifting. Japan was responding to a new reality. September 10, 2025, Japan stands at a crossroads. One path leads back to the US, negotiating, hoping for change but risking long-term sovereignty. The other path is toward BRICS, a leap into the unknown, promising autonomy but fraught with risk. Navigating new partnerships with China and Russia would mean rethinking security from the ground up. The outcome is uncertain. A change in US leadership could pull Japan back, or continued pressure could push it further away. BRICS's unity and benefits will also shape Japan's choice. What's clear, the old certainties are gone. The tariff crisis didn't cause this shift, but it made it impossible to ignore. Japan now knows no alliance is unconditional. Its decision will define its future, and could reshape the global order. The world is watching. As Japan goes, so may go the future of global power. The next chapter is about to be written.